Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Gentlemen, I want to give first a shout out to Anubis for sharing, to Slipknot, the contractor, to Malika Mebane for coming through on Cash App, Saffron for coming through on the Cash App, and S. Jock for coming through on it. And as Jock, you may have sent emails and I just haven't had time to really go back and check them, and I'm sorry about that. But this semester and the last semester have been really busy ones. This one's okay. It's not like the last semester, but it's busy. Last semester was busy and stressful. I was worried about my job then. And I'm facing a similar situation now because I have students that are better behaved than they were last semester, but they don't fix their mistakes. And they all feel like they deserve to go to, they feel like they deserve to go into the regular program, the rest of the university, without knowing the language of instruction. And that's not fair to the ones that are already in the main portion of the university and who do know English and Arabic, that are actually bilingual. They feel entitled. They're not mean, but they do feel entitled without actually learning. And I told him that the difference is I'm not even going to send them to take the exit exam, which is a standardized test, a company test, that I'm not even going to send them to take that. I'm not doing that because if I send them to take that exam and they're not ready, then they'll just fail that exit exam and they'll still blame me. This is a type of accountability that they don't have. And I'm going to give a shout out to Manosphere Highlights Daily. We men, ain't we? Because there's something he shared recently. A man who survived his wife's infidelity, I mean, I say survived because it really does hurt, but a man who faced his wife's infidelity, now his ex-wife, interviewed an expert on female infidelity, and her name is Michelle Langley. She is a therapist of some sorts, maybe licensed psychologist. This lady was talking about female infidelity, and she said, we're not sure that women are wired for monogamy more than men are. As a matter of fact, she said women are not. I say that women are wired for it. They're wired for monogamy more so than men. But if they detest a man or they have contempt for a man, then they want to punish him by smashing someone else. And in the West, they're trained to have contempt for most men. So what do they want to do? Well, they want to smash somebody else, even if it's just out of contempt. And she even said that in many cases, when she's talked to these ladies that are cheating on their husbands, the story that they have is about the demonization of the husband or the boyfriend on whom they're cheating. And while in Islam, cheating is only when you're married, I'm using the understanding of cheating that these ladies have to explain it. So they understand cheating as being cheating on a boyfriend, and so therefore that's why I'm using this term. If this is what we're facing, then we have to look at what it is that's really causing this rise in female infidelity according to women's own takes on it. Because she believes that it's actually increasing, not only being recorded and discovered more, but increasing more. And my answer to that is that my suspicion is both as well, that it's being recorded more and it's actually happening more. But one of the reasons for this happening more is exactly what she said, which is the one kind of equality, and she framed it in these terms. She said there is one type of equality that women do not have, and that is the equality of accountability. They don't take accountability equally as men, and so therefore they're just not going to to hold themselves accountable, and they're not going to stop. They don't. She said that when they cheat, they don't stop on their own. Men could, but that women simply will not stop on their own. She pretty much sat up there and said that for women, they just don't stop cheating. They're going to cheat, and they're going to do it again, and then they're going to do it again if they've done it already, because, well, they can. And I've usually held that up to just a man can simply not make approaches, whereas a woman gets approached, and so therefore the woman is not going to stop on her own, because for her it's a question of accepting approaches, it's not one of being approached. She doesn't have to really do the work to procure a cheating partner, as well as the fact that, well, like this lady said, Miss Langley rightly and astutely stated that, frankly, there's just no accountability. I know this to be the case, and I do not believe that this is something that is innate in women per se, or it's not innate to the severity that we understand in the West and that we observe in the West. I believe that it is either innate with a small margin of difference, or that it is not innate. My suspicion of the two, between the two, is that accountability is actually innate in not only adults, but even in adolescents. I'm wrong if I do this to someone, just like they're wrong if they do it to me. I have seen in middle schools where you don't have this, and to be honest with you, I saw this the most in Latin American kids in middle schools, not so much high schools, but in middle schools, I saw it in Latin American kids. I don't know what the reason is, and I don't particularly care. They were so bad that I had to tell their parents, I will call ICE myself. If your kid acts up in class again and you don't beat that behind, I will call ICE. Because they're holding that threat over you. I'll call ICE if you beat me. Okay, I'm going to call them if you don't. So beat them twice. Beat that ass because they're not behaving themselves. And then if they turn around and say, I'm going to call ICE, okay, give them another beating before they pick up that phone and call ICE, or even 911. Say, okay, well, then here's an ass whooping you can take with you to that government home they're going to stick you in after they deport us, because you're going to need that discipline. You're just going to have to accept the punishments, or not even accept. You're just going to have to suffer the punishments for what you do. And that's one thing about the U.S. penal system. I don't think they have enough death penalties. We're not asking you to accept the punishment. No, we're telling you you will suffer it. And if you resist that, we'll kill you. But even the U.S. penal system does have a type of death penalty for certain things. I mean, if you try to escape, the guards have a right to shoot you and kill you because you tried to escape. Not just injure you. No, you tried to escape after you got convicted of a crime. You trying to escape from the penitentiary or even from county while awaiting trial. No, they have the right to shoot you dead because you tried to evade the penalty that the state has already determined you deserve. That's one thing I like about it. And many people who are not sociopaths and psychopaths can look and they can say, okay, well, I'd rather just not even get into that system. I'm not going to break certain rules. Once you lifted physical punishments and social punishments from women because they cheat on their husbands or their boyfriends, you gave them license to cheat. If you cheat on a wife, if you even marry another wife and your first wife hits you, no one's going to blame her for that. But if she cheats on you, you better not strike her. You better not even slap her on the cheek. And if you leave, there are going to be a bunch of people saying, well, you need to forgive. No, the F you don't. You better never forgive a woman that cheats and she knows you know about it. If you're going to forgive her, you found out about it, then don't even tell her that you know. Because once she knows that you know and you forgave her, she says, okay, you're an idiot. If she knows that you don't know about it, if she thinks you don't know about it, she looks at you like you're stupid for not knowing. You're insecure if you don't trust her, but you're dumb if you do. And that's in their mind. So you can't really win this. So understand that we now have a confession that I'm not even limiting to buy me a coffee like I should for only the first class flyers. This is a confession, in a sense, by a lady who's an expert on ladies cheating, that women are doing this because there's no accountability. And of course, they're talking in the context of the West. Now, where I live, there are notions of chivalry amongst men. But you know what? These notions of chivalry do have an exchange for them. I'm supposed to give up my seat on a bus or on a train or on a plane because a woman needs to sit next to her husband or needs to sit next to another lady and needs to not sit next to a man to whom she's not related. And that's what I'm supposed to do. And I really don't give a rat's behind where I sit or who sits next to me. I don't bother anybody. And people don't bother me like that. I don't fiverguck, but I'm expected to move. And I once told my wife, I'm getting sick and tired of people doing this. And I was about to say that there's something that needs to come in exchange for this. She didn't let me finish. You're a man. I'm telling you, I have a good wife. And I've had to sit up and interrupt her before and tell her, first off, let me finish. Secondly, because you interrupted me. Secondly, if we're going to be asked to move, there needs to be a consideration for it. Now, for me, it's somewhat easy because I've got one experience with I need to move my seat because of a woman. But then I also have the other experience of you spoiling me and treating me very well and appreciating the things I do for you and me running up in between your legs, too. But you got a lot of people here, men and women alike, don't have that second experience with the opposite gender because they ain't married. So they don't have it. So now that you have that, you're just going to walk up to these dudes that ain't got the money, so therefore they ain't married, and then tell them they need to move because of a lady, even though it was their seat and they got there first to begin with. Here's the kicker with that. She said, so you want me sitting next to strange men? And I told her, no, I don't. By the same token, I'm not blaming you if that's where that man winds up seated and that's where you wind up seated. I'm not blaming you for it either. I'm not blaming him. It wasn't something y'all planned. Don't bother each other and I'm not tripping. I don't like it. I'm not going to elect that. But the thing is, I'm not going to blame either one of you until one of you steps out of line. If it's him, I blame him. If it's you, I blame you. And you don't do that. However, if you and I are traveling together, we have the option. But if we're not, you see, then no, I don't blame you. If you ask, or, there'll be guys that will even volunteer and stuff like that. But this notion of this notion of a lady never has to give me my seat back is the problem, because I've gone in situations like this and then I've had to sit up and look for another seat because every time I pick another seat since I was asked to give up mine, it belongs to someone else. And I got to wait for someone to tell me, okay, you can have this seat over here. I paid for a chair. I should have been sitting down and pulling my tablet out and getting ready. I'm standing up with a bad back waiting and just waiting patiently. So what I was going to tell my wife that I had to keep interrupting her to get her to understand is men shouldn't have to pay the same price for tickets or for seat selections on planes or trains or buses. That's what I was going to tell her. I was going to say to her, I'm okay with the chivalry when there's something in exchange for it. I'm fine with that when there is something in exchange for it. But I should not have to pay the same price for a seat or for a ticket if I am guaranteed to be asked to move and she's guaranteed to be allowed to sit wherever the hell she sits. Fit the guck out my face with that sure bit. Now, this is something you will have a hard time telling a good wife in a good environment sometimes. And I've oftentimes told you that traditional environments are not paradises. They're just better than where you live right now. They tend to be a little bit more movable towards fair, and it's not too far gone. So you can prevent them from reaching the same level of BS in the environment in which you now live right now. At this point, you're looking at the West. Traditional environments can be prevented from going as bad as the West. That can happen. But I'm also telling you that these traditional environments are not paradises. The women here are too goddamn mysterious. I don't appreciate that. When they finally do open up and talk about what they want, I like money. Dumbass. There are women out here married to men with money and they're complaining about what the hell he doesn't have. Make up your damn mind about what you actually want and don't say everything. Of course you want everything, we all do, but you have to have a standard and stick to it. And the other thing too, if in fact the man can't make you happy and you leave, just admit, it's not really him. Do like that lady that approached Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, I don't love him and I didn't pick him. Okay, fine. Give him his dowry back and you're free to go. What these broads want to do is get married to a man, keep the dowry, and then get rid of him. Bitch, you have a problem with him because of what he's not because of what he is. You don't get to do that. That lady was honest and she didn't pick that man. You out here agreeing to these marriages and then I'm just bored. And that's not very common here because they know that these men are not replaceable. But even these traditional environments have their drawbacks. My wife and I had this debate on Saturday. She was dropping me off at the bus station. And I was telling her, listen, I like to board first. Here's why. There are seats that don't have any neighbors and I can pay extra and get those seats. Then I board first. I sit down in those seats before someone else does. It's my seat anyway. I paid for it. It's on a ticket and no one asked me to move. It doesn't matter because the chair does not have a neighbor. So no one comes to me, lo samat, they shouldn't at least. But if I board late, then there's going to be a woman sitting in that chair. If I buy the ticket and then I board late, if I reserve that seat and I board late, there's going to be some lady sitting in the chair telling me some explanation as to why she's in my seat. Can I sit elsewhere? Well, bitch, where's your chair? Which number's yours? And I better not find a bunch of women sitting next to it either. Because I've done this before. And because my wife interrupted me, I told her, this is what I've done before. And you didn't know about it. I've gone back to them and I've said, look, somebody else has that chair and it's their chair. Somebody else has it. Someone else is already sitting in it. So you already swapped seats with somebody and you didn't tell me. You didn't even swap with him. Or I go back and I say, I can't sit there. There are a bunch of women there. So you can give me my seat back and take that one because that's a bunch of women. I've had to do this before. I don't like being that rude to women I don't know. To women, period, really. But I had to tell my wife I've done this before to get her to fuck the shuck up and understand that if, one, she needs to listen. Number two, just because I'm okay with being chivalrous and not bothering women, and I'm glad that she's safe when I'm not around because men here do have a sense of chivalry, does not mean that I'm willing to accept that I have to pay the exact same damn ticket price and seat reservation fee only to not be able to keep my seat because a woman sat there. That's not what we're doing. If that's how it's going to work, let's formalize this and make an even exchange. Men pay less for their tickets because their seats aren't guaranteed. Because they're going to have to stand up longer waiting on seats to become available as women shuffle themselves around. That's all. Let's make it fair. And the thing is I was interrupting my wife because she was interrupting me. We finally got to the station. I said, okay, all right, we're here. Gave her a goodbye hug. Went, and I usually get a driver. She didn't even notice. She thinks I'm, sitting on the bus. No, I get a driver. She's wondering why I get back home so fast or why I get to her so fast. I get a driver. They got these guys that are out there and, they'll take you to another city. You can be there before the bus will get there. I usually find one. And guess what happened? I went to one driver. I asked him if he was going to my city. He said, yep. I said, I tell you what, I'll wait till you get some other passengers and I'll join. But I looked at his seats in his van and I said, okay, this one has a cushion in it for the back. I'll pay you extra to reserve the seat because of my back pain. He took a few extra reals. Okay, fine. We got an agreement. Guess who the other two passengers were? A married couple, husband and his wife. They wanted, now since that seat was next to another seat, they wanted to sit together. I didn't blame them. That's fine. They're husband and wife. Yeah, they're supposed to sit together. But the front passenger seat where he was expecting me to sit didn't have the same cushion. As a matter of fact, it smelled like cigarette smoke. So I was like, okay, now I'm going to get sick and have a back pain. Man, you know what? Hang it up, bro. The cushion on the other seat wasn't detachable. So I told the man, listen, I tell you what, I reserved that seat for a few extra riyal. Can I get that difference back? All of a sudden, he didn't understand classical Arabic. So exactly what I was trying to tell my wife was the issue was going to be the case right now, playing out in front of me. The funny thing was, I wasn't mad at the wife. She wasn't mad at me. She even said to the driver, you're not listening to him. He said it in Arabic and you keep answering him in his broken Arabic. He doesn't speak that. He's not from India or Pakistan. He studied Arabic. And he said to you in classical Arabic that since he reserved this chair here, can he get the extra money back for that chair, the difference? Can you return that to him? So the man then said, oh, he wants a refund. And then he gave back all of it and I got my bag. So he declined to take me at all because he couldn't understand proper Arabic. He was the problem. It wasn't her. Manosphere Hall of Fame would be glad to hear me say this. But the thing is that there does have to be an accountability, and it's going to have to be enforced by dudes and women alike. Women enforce a social accountability, but they're also going to have to be financial accountabilities too. And in some cases, and among some communities, because of the culture, not because of the DNA, you're going to have some physical consequences as well. As a matter of fact, in all of them, when it comes to marriage, you're going to have physical consequences to cheating if you can prove the cheating. If you can't prove it, you can't prove it. But if you can prove it, you're going to have physical consequences. Now, Andrew Tate used to like to say, Abdul, get the rocks, talking about stoning adulterers to death. Mainly stoning adulteresses and loose women to death. Well, fornicators, women or men, aren't subject to the stoning when they're not married. But adulterers married are subject to stoning whether they're men or women because God is fair. But you know what? In the West right now, if you put that rule in place that once adultery is proven, you will have far more women being stoned to death than men. With or without polygyny being legalized, you will have that. Then it'll shift and the women will say, well, because the law is this, we're just going to deny our husbands and hide our own cheating and then catch our husbands so that they get stoned to death and we get rid of them. They're going to start doing that. But then at that point, that's going to be when the men say, okay, well, now we got to legalize polygyny. And then they legalize it, and then the men will marry other wives. First wife withholds. Okay, bitch, now you're about to get a divorce. And I'm not single. I'm already married to somebody else. It's going to be your ass trying to replace me. You've already failed the competition with the other wife. That's what the hell it's going to be. There are going to have to be consequences because they're not going to hold themselves accountable in many cases. Now here, they're not even doing the stoning anymore. But these ladies are to a certain extent, they're holding themselves accountable. To a certain extent, it's changing in the bigger cities, but it's slow. But that's one thing we're just going to have to learn to understand and accept and get ready for. The fact is that, like Michelle Langley said, no, the inequality, the major inequality that we are facing now is the inequality of accountability. And if you're going to have that kind of inequality, you don't have equality at all. We need to stop accepting these notions of inequality of accountability. And that's why I disagree with Shahid Bolsen. I'm telling you guys, we can't sit up and listen to him. That's why I'm saying that. I'm talking like that for that reason. Because Shahid Bolsen, who means well, actually supports the notion that men just need to be more responsible in exchange for nothing extra. And that women just get extra privileges with no extra responsibilities. That's what he's promoting. These broads that are getting extra privileges with no extra responsibilities in the traditional context in which he's thinking, or in the Western context in which you live, both of them have a problem with the notions of what Allah gives men in paradise. They will argue, why y'all get 2 wives and 72 virgin concubines? Bitch, you made us earn it. That's why. You chose that. You made a decision. You were never going to take us into full consideration the way you take yourself. At no point were you going to do that on your own. So guess what the F that means, dummy? That's who you are. That's how you are. That's what you provoked. God rewarded that because you insisted on it. That's why you outnumber men in hell. You chose that. In order to outnumber men in hell, you have to make a decision. In order for us to get these rewards, and God doesn't mention what you get, but he doesn't say that he's going to give you that either. Well, one, that's not a part of your nature anyway. According to you yourself, that's not a part of your nature. And number two, because it's not, you don't even care how God made men. And so even when men try to be responsible with the way that God made us, you got a problem. So you know what? You are the major struggle and trial and tribulation that's through which men are going to earn all of the stuff in paradise. Because you could have been that here in this world and you decided you weren't going to be any of that. And that for any measure of that you were going to be twice or three times the headache. And you had niggas like Shahid Bolsen championing this stuff. Like you just can't help it. You just can't be any better when you can. That's the reason why. No equality and no more talk of equality until we have equality of accountability. And I actually do believe that they are capable of that equality of accountability. I don't infantilize them. But if they won't accept it, they cannot have other measures of accountability, of equality in other contexts. I say this as a man that loves his daughters, but if my daughters decide to go that route, guess what? You don't have equality then. My youngest daughter joked one time and said, I oftentimes say that I'm just a girl, like if I do something wrong. She joked and I said to her, then you're not equal. You have no right to be upset if you hear me listening to BOA on YouTube and he says something about what women are incapable of doing. You have no right to be upset about that if that's what you're going to say. If you're joking, you're joking. That's cool. The minute you become serious and you're not joking, you lose all rights to be upset about that. That's the end of it. So with that being said, I appreciate you all. Thank you for listening as always. Black Heart, Black Mind, Blackout. Assalamu alaikum, Black Heterosexual Non-Select Male Power because they don't like it. Black Patriarchy until extinction of Judgment Day. Thank you for flying with us here on Jet Black Air with a phrase. Jet Black is also a verb. Keep Jet Black with us till the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice, forever.